I'm Steve from Arrowquip. We're going to give you a video demonstration today on how to convert a left-handed Q-Catch chute to a right-handed configuration. And the tools that you will need to do this is you need an Allen key and a 15/16 wrench, and that's for these shoulder bolts. And all the other nuts and bolts are 3/4 wrench and 9/16 wrench. Now there's two components that will be needed to complete this configuration change. One of them is the squeeze lock box, and the other is this bracket, which is called the Fandangle, which is used to release the lock box. And just a small note, when you take all your nuts and bolts off, put them in a bucket so that you're not like me and go and lose some. Now just a note, if you want to do a right-hand configuration to a left-hand configuration, same steps, just in the reverse. Okay, so we'll proceed with it now. So the first thing you do is remove your shield. I always leave one bolt in here and let it swing down because the shield is fairly heavy duty. So then just grab it like this, remove your last bolt. The next thing we'll proceed with is converting the head gate from left hand to right hand. So the first thing you do is remove your hammers. There's a UHMW washer in between. Don't forget to put that back. There's also a washer in between there. Now I'll go to the back of the chute here. Take your back pin out. Then just let your bar hang like that. Take your control handle and slide it off. Now that your rear control bar is loose at this end, handle is removed. Before you slide it out, there's a little formed part here by your bushing that keeps this bar positioned properly. You have to remove it. Now your rear control bar will just slide right out the front. And the last thing to do is to remove your control tower, put it on the right hand side. So now we'll take the control tower and move it to the right hand side. Now when you go to put this on, you notice this profile is kind of in your road. So to save yourself the hassle of taking the bar out and switching around, you can just take this bolt out and give it a half turn. It's very simple. Now your hole is free. Put your tower in place. Got it. Now I got my fasteners. You got your 1/2x1 bolt in the bottom, and your flange nut. So you got your 3/8x1 bolts on top. And the other thing I do is I keep all my bolts and nuts loose till after the process is completed, and then I tighten everything up, or otherwise you're going to make life very hard for yourself. Okay, now we'll switch out our rear control bracket now. So this is your rear control bracket. We'll take it off and move it to the other side. So these are the rear control bracket assembly. We're just taking it off from the left-hand side, moving it to the right, and there is a backer plate that goes along with it. Make sure and put that back on. It goes on the other side of the tube like that. That's how the assembly is. And this doesn't matter, it can be put, there's no left or right hand way to put this on. So now we'll put our rear control bar in. Make sure your first plastic bushing is on and hard up against this profile. Then just take your bar, push it through the tower to about halfway. It will hold itself. Then take your second bushing and slide it on like that. Then continue bringing your bar through till your first bushing slides in. Then take your back pin and your handle. Make sure it's installed correctly and your wing bolt should be facing you. And you can use it as a little handle like that. Lift it up, install your pin, put your 3/8 bolt in. Now return to the front of the bar and put your bushing back in your second bushing back in your tower. And then remember that little form profile we have, it goes on, and that's what keeps it secured in the right position. That's very important that it goes on. And this is your bracket, and it's important that that short leg, that flange, goes up hard up against your plastic bushing. And you've got a slot there for adjustment. And once again, it's important to make sure everything's tight. Push up your bracket and tighten up your bolt. This bolt I would tighten immediately. Don't leave it. So now take your big main profile and slide it on the end of your rear control bar, and make sure that that's put on this way here, otherwise your head gate won't work at all. So just don't let it fall on your head. These are 1/2 inch bolts, 3/4 inch wrench. Put them on like this. So now that's complete. Now your next step is to put the hammers on. I'll start with the long hammer first. I usually prep my hammer like that, put my 1/2 inch bolt on and the washer next to it there. Then make sure to mount this on the hole that's toward this center of the head gate. Like that. Then just thumb on your 1/2 inch nut. Okay, so now take your shoulder bolt, put it in, then your UHMW washer on the other side, then your hammer, then your nut. Like that. We'll tighten up that later. So now we'll start with our short hammers. Assembly is the same. You got your bolt and your washer on the inside of the hammer on the inside of that slot there. So the long hammer goes on the hole on the inside of the door. The short hammer goes on the hole on the outside of the door. So both hammers are installed in the door now. And same thing. Shoulder bolt first, UHMW washer, install your hammer, put your nut on. Don't over tighten your shoulder bolts or you'll create a little bit of friction on your head gate. There's a couple of very important points to note here that I want to show you, or your head gate is not going to work properly. So first of all, I want you to note how this hammer is over the near side lock here and how it's on this lock. But what's very, very important is this slot here. These 1/2-inch bolts can't be over tightened because this needs to freely move in the slot. Because if it's tightened up too much, as I did on this one just for demonstration purposes, and it's not allowing it to slide, your head gate's either not gonna catch or it's not going to release properly. So make sure that those bolts are loose enough that it has no friction sliding on them slots. There we go there. Nice and free. So the next step is to take our squeeze handle assembly and our bracket that releases the squeeze lock box. We'll take it to the right hand side. So the first thing is to remove this bracket. Same thing, 1/2-inch bolts, 3/4 wrench. Take off your bracket, and remember that this is the bracket that you have to order. You need the right hand configuration. So now that your bracket is off, that releases your lock box, take out your 2 bolts here. And remove this top pin. And then just take this bar, tilt it a bit out to get past this bracket and lift. Got? And then your bottom bracket. And there's also a backer plate on here. It's important that it gets put back on. This is what the assembly looks like. Okay, so now we'll start with installing our bottom bracket on the right hand side. Don't forget your backer plate and your nuts. Now we'll take our squeeze handle assembly and slide it on the pin, just like that. Now take your top pin assembly and slide it in the top, just like that. And then you'll need to turn the pin to line up the hole for this bracket. Okay, so now we're going to go inside the chute, and the first thing we're going to do is remove the squeeze lock box assembly and the front bracket that bolts onto this angle here. Just remember, I pre-loosened all my bolts, that's why I can thumb them off. There's your lockbox assembly here with your front bracket, and just remember it needs to be swapped out with the right hand lockbox. So you've got your top linkages up here. You've got one linkage that runs on the diagonal. It has to be swapped the other way along with the bolts. So I'll do that right now. So take out your longer bolt here. It won't fall on you because it's still bolted on at the back. Go to the other side. Take it off there. Take out your shorter bolt. Then go to the back. So this is the way this bar was configured in a left-hand version. So what you need to take out your bolts, then just simply take this bar and reconfigure it this way, bearing in mind that the bolts in this top bar go in these inside holes. You see there's two sets of holes, one's closer to the outside. It goes on the hole that's farthest from the end. It's very important or your squeeze will not function properly at all. So the back bolt's in. Now we'll go to the front. Take your longer bolt. If it doesn't line up, just move your squeeze a bit like that till it does. And this bolt goes through two linkages. Put it in, and then one more bolt to go. There, your linkages are swapped over. Everything is working good. You should be able to double check yourself. Come to your working side and you should be able to easily move your squeeze like that. Because if it's hooked up backwards, you'll notice when I try to operate the offside, it's a lot more difficult. So it's very important that that diagonal 1x1 is put the other way. So now that our 1x1s are swapped over to right-hand configuration, the left-hand lockbox assembly is taken off. I've reconfigured it with the right-hand lockbox. So now we'll proceed with this installation. I got it all prepped. I got my bracket that bolts on the angle all already on here. My long bolt that goes through my bracket by here is on. So the first thing to do is just lift your box up and put this bolt in first. Just drop it in this bracket right here. Just like that. Okay. Then line up this bracket, there's two holes here. And just a note, you should open up your Q-Catch doors to give yourself lots of room to work here. So this bracket's installed with your bolts, nuts are on. Go back here to your lock box and put your nut on the bottom. Complete. So now that we've got the squeeze linkage reconfigured, we've got the right hand squeeze lock box installed, and make sure your bolts are tightened up on that. Your main long bolt through your box, make sure it's not over tightened because it needs to swivel and move a bit. You don't want to create too much friction. So the last thing we have to do here is take your right hand configured Fandangle and get it installed. So your top bolt goes through your Fandangle and it also goes through this top pin here. So you need to make sure that they're all lined up. Okay, your Fandangle bracket is now bolted on. So the next step is to make sure that you've got your adjustment properly. So what you want to do is loosen these two bolts here, 2 1/2-inch bolts. They have jam nuts on them. Loosen them right off so you got some movement there. Now, I'll start by taking your bolt that's on the front of the chute. That's the first one to adjust. Take your handle and set it so that this bracket is pushing this in about 1/4, 3/8 of an inch. And then just set it like that. And then tighten it up. Now we have to adjust it for margin for that pin so that when we squeeze it in, we're not too far away from the pin, and when we open it up, we're not pushing the pin too far. So I'll set it and then I'll show you the margins that are needed. So now I've got my bolts adjusted. So when I go to squeeze the animal, operate the squeeze, pushing it in, that should have about 3/8 to 1/2 inch margin. When I go to release the squeeze, it should push that pin approximately 1/4 inch. And then it should work. It should work fine. You can see that it operates nice and smoothly. And then just make sure that you jam your lock nuts, or otherwise it's going to get out of adjustment on you. So just to recap, when you release the squeeze, open it up, you're pushing your lock pin about 1/4 inch. When you're using the squeeze, squeezing the animal, you got about 3/8 to 1/2 inch margin. So you can see the squeeze is operating nice and easy. Okay, so the last thing there is to do to complete this left hand to right hand configuration is just to install your shield. So like I say, what I normally do is just hold on to it like that, put one bolt in first, put it in loose, grab the rest of your bolts, swing it up into place. And there you have it. We just like to make a point, if you have any questions or any difficulties, be free to call Arrowquip and talk to client care, and we'll be more than glad to help you out and answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for your time.